Hey VC, thanks for stopping by Tony's LPs Are Us. I'm Tony. Welcome. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you again for stopping by. I know there's a lot of competition on YouTube and on the internet and all the streaming stuff, so really appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. I want to thank everyone who has subscribed and commented and leave likes and all that other good stuff on YouTube. But this video is about something I discovered the other day. As you know, I did a review / announcement that Mobile Fidelity is now having pre-orders on this record, a double 45 RPM on the Mobile Fidelity series. It's not a one-step, it's not UHQR, but it's a 45 RPM. It's going to sound fantastic because this record sounds fantastic. But I have two of these records. So the other day I'm playing them again after I did my review. I'm playing them, and I started looking at the dead wax to see what the differences are. And I found something that was pretty cool, and I think if you know what to look for, head out to your local record shop or go on eBay, and if there's a good close-up of the record, and if it's in decent condition, VG Plus or better, I would say pick up this particular copy. This is a hot stamper. Now, you all know the hot stamper website. You know, you'll pay hundreds of dollars for what they consider a hot stamper. I think they're still around. I used to go on hot stamper just to see what they thought were good sounding records, and I would go back, and they were actually good sounding records. I don't know if I had a hot stamper or not. The hot stampers, there's certain things in the dead wax, and you know, the management from Hot Stamp is very controversial. I'm not going to mention his name, but he goes through, 10, 20, 30 copies of the same record. And when he hits one that is like staggering sonically, quiet, all the instruments are spaced out with the proper, proper distance between each other. You could actually see the band. He considers that a hot stamper, and he gets a lot of money for those records. It's guaranteed. So if you're not happy with what he considers a hot stamper, I guess you get a refund. But I think I've hit a hot stamper on this one, and I'm going to tell you exactly what the dead wax says. I'm going to tell you exactly what the matrix looks like, because when I started looking at these records, and here's the label, one of these, the one I'm going to show you, has some unique characteristics on the jacket as well. But don't go by the jacket, go by the record. These are both processed out of California. The originals were completely Vancouver, British Columbia. They were on mushroom. Those, I don't know. I've never heard one. I at first thought I had a Canadian pressing, but when I looked at the dead wax, they were both Kendum. Now, Kendum is Kendum. Those are in both dead waxes, but there's some really unique characteristics on these, and this is one that, okay, so you could see here, this is a California press, and on the jacket, it reads, on the bottom of the jacket, I'm going to show you so you can see the difference. This is the non-best sounding record. I'm going to show this first, and then I'm going to go into detail on the best sounding record. And then I'll tell a little story about these two girls, Nancy and Annie Wilson. Just extraordinary. Broke the ceiling for girl rock and roll bands, as you know. Just set off a like an explosion, like a supernova. The sound was incredible. And I told the story when I worked in the record shop. I actually heard Dreamboat Annie and Magic Man and Crazy on You on a record on New York's FM station at that time was WNEW FM. And they were on 24/7. They played all genres, and I heard it. I told the guy, my boss, who was a great guy, passed away, who ran that record shop, Vogel's Records. I said, man, you got to get this record. He hadn't heard about it. There was no push for it. He got it. We probably sold thousands of copies at $3.97, $4.97 was probably either a $5.98 or a $698 list price, and this was 1977. This debuted in America on 2/14/76, Valentine's Day, very apropos. The original came out, I believe, in November from Mushroom Records, Vancouver, Columbia, Canada, on November of 75, and then it caught fire, and we talked about that. Now, Nancy had replied to an ad that someone wanted a vocalist in a rock band. Later on, morphed to Heart. She basically called her sister in, who was an unbelievable guitar player. And if you listen to Crazy on You, that whole intro, that acoustic intro that reminds me so much of Led Zeppelin, she said she worked on that for 2 or 3 days because Annie had the lyrics of Crazy on You. And then you have, of course, Magic Man. But, Crazy on You is an anti-war song. This was during the end of Vietnam. And it's funny, the two guitar players that were brothers on this original band of Heart, one of them, I think, went from Seattle to Canada, British Columbia, to escape the draft. So there were 2 brothers and 2 sisters. And then later on, like I said, the Nancy Wilson and Annie Wilson basically took over the band. Now, this actually has on it, manufactured and distributed by Mushroom Records, 1976, Los Angeles, California. The one that I'm telling you to go out and purchase. Now, don't go only by the jacket, but I'm going to give you the jacket info anyway, and you could see that there. That says manufactured by, and it has a Roman numeral date, which I believe is 75. MCM LXXV1. Maybe that's 76. Mushroom Records Canada, Inc. Distributed by 4th Street East, Inc. 9957 Chattanooga Avenue, Chatswoods, California. So you have different jackets on that. And there's also a different color. This jacket, you can see it's kind of like a pinkish red, and this jacket is kind of a red. So slightly different, just a different press, obviously a different press. Now, the one you want to go for, and I have it listed on here, you could read that. That's the actual dead wax information. But what I want you to look for first, and you're going to thank me, because I would go out and shop record stores because I don't think they actually listen to what sounds better unless it's, an RL or something like that. But this is coming out pre-ordered. I just ordered it today. I talked to the great people at Music Direct. I have my copy coming. They don't know when. I forgot to ask how many copies were being printed with numbers, but they did sell. They're pretty happy with the pre-orders right now. So hopefully that'll come out. But if you look at this dead wax, you can see the dead wax to the label is pretty thin. I would say this much there, and that's on both sides. Okay, now this was the reason I started to go into detail on this, and I played them back to back, because if you look at this one, which is my other copy, which I cherish both, they both sound great, but one actually has a huge edge. It's like I indicated, it's definitely a hot stamper. Now, this one, and I'll show you the dead wax, and you can see the dead wax is much wider. So that's the dead wax on this, and I'll give you the matrix on this one first. The matrix on this one is side 1 S7703 MRS-5005-1 Kendom A JG initials. That's on the dead wax side 1 on this the wider profile here. Side 2 S7704 MRS-5005-2 Kendom A again, and also has JC on it. So now that sounds great. Don't get me wrong. Sounds super. And I'll hold that up so you can actually see that there. That's the dead wax on the one that doesn't have Canada on the jacket. Now on this one, which is the dead wax, which is thinner, sonically it blew me away. I played this because I did an AB again after I had talked about it previously about the announcement. And I heard the banjo that's on one of the last tracks on side 2 more prominently. The flute kind of floated. Nancy, I think it's Annie Wilson who actually plays flute. Let me get my spectacles here. This is a spectacle. Annie plays flute on Dreamboat Annie Reprise on the second side, side 2. And it's just, it floats. And also you hear the cowbell on side 1. Now side 1 I think is the superior side. It has Crazy on You. It has Magic Man. Magic Man, it just, bam. And when I listened to some interviews by Nancy without Annie, they actually finishes each other's sentences, and they actually ask permission. Can I speak for you? Can I speak? They are so humble. I didn't expect that. You know, most rock people, you put them up on pedestals, but you know they're all humble. You know, Ozzy's humble. Jimi Hendrix was humble. Morrison wasn't humble, but Morrison had his issues. Dylan, that's a whole other category. Bono, it's a whole other category. Elvis was humble. So these big guys are really, you know, humble. Now, you have Chuck Berry, who was kind of always sarcastic, but he knew he was humble. He never talked down to people. So that's what I like about these sisters. And they moved from Seattle to British Columbia, Canada, just like the brothers did who were in the band playing guitar. So Magic Man and Nancy Wilson. I'm going to tell you a funny story about Magic Man because I used to videotape weddings part-time. I had a video company. We did parties, bar mitzvahs, commercials for manufacturing, roofers. We did whatever job came, but it was primarily weddings, and we did what I call a 2-camera shoot. Sometimes I did a 2-camera shoot by myself, but that's another story. But my partner out there was Rick. We had great times together, and then later on I added people as I needed to do 2 jobs if we had 2 or 3 jobs on the same day. But you know, I don't know if you've been to weddings, and this is going back 20 years ago, but the girls would get on one side, the boys would get on one side, and they would actually do Paradise by the Dashboard Light. They would do things from Grease. They would act it out as if it was a play. It was really cool. And, you know, this is about the same time as Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell. So that was always, you know, always happening. The Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell, Paradise by the Dashboard Light, that big, you know, finish with the girl and the guy. And so they would act that out. We would videotape it. But once I did a wedding where they actually acted out Magic Man, and the girl had her boyfriend or her husband at the time, and her mother was saying, I want my, you know, where have you been, my daughter? Where are you? Because that's what Magic Man is about. The daughter basically, you know, picks up her boyfriend. They go out, they disappear, and they actually worked out that whole scenario. So it was pretty cool. You know, he's a Magic Man. Crazy on You, I just want to talk about again. Nancy Wilson said she worked about 2 or 3 days to get that intro right. And if you listen to that intro, she nails that. And she wanted to put herself up there, she said, with the male guitar players of the era, and she did that. The searing vocals by Nancy, the harmonies, you know, just I don't consider this a heavy metal rock and roll album, but some do. You know, it has elements of classical, has elements of acoustic folk, but more pop and the heavy things with the, you know, guitars, and then the banjo, which you normally didn't hear too much, and the flute, of course, was very toe-like at the time. But there were a lot of bands in England that used flute. You know, a lot of the folk Renaissance type of things, like Renaissance type of thing. So, but this is what you guys were waiting for. So I'm going to talk about what the dead wax is on this. Now, the dead wax on this, which I'm going to show again, is the very narrow dead wax versus label. Now, this gives you more room for those grooves to breathe. The other argument is bigger gap on the end. Your arm doesn't go in as far to the label, so you get less distortion. But in this case, this one is superior. This one is an audiophile record. This is a hot stamper. I can't wait to compare it to my Mobile Fidelity 2LP 45 RPM when that comes. So, okay, this is what you've been waiting for. This is the dead wax on this. Now, this dead wax is pretty cool. I'm going to hold it up so you can freeze that out. I can't do a close-up. I actually had to use this device. You can see there before with a lot of light. So this is cool. Side 1, Kendum, which is KENDUM-1- MRS-5005A, LM with a heart. So the letters LM with the heart. Didn't research it, don't know what that is. If that was the guy who cut it, don't know. Side B, Kendum-B-. Now, this also has written on it. Now, this is cool. This is side 2. Go for it. G-O word 4 F-O-R it. Then in parentheses, it has magazine, M-A-G-I-Z-I-N-E. And then on the bottom, after that on the circle, MRS-5005B. So I'll just hold that up. This is what you want to look for. The heart with the LM is only on side 1. Very difficult to see. But it's there. But if you could flip it over to side 2 and see Go For It magazine. Now, magazine was their next record. So I'm thinking this was a earlier pressing than the previous pressing I showed. Both manufactured, I believe, in America, Kendum. So best sounding Dreamboat Annie I have. I only have 2 copies. I have a CD, but we're not even talking about that. So Mushroom Records, first pressing maybe from the LA, California thing. So you have it. Here's the dead wax. You have it again. I'll hold it up one more time. This is the thin dead wax. The dead wax matrix is thin from the last song to the end. So they're using a lot more plastic, which really gives it a little oomph. There was also a little bit of distortion on Magic Man on the left channel for a split second on the other copy, which I didn't hear on this copy. And I heard that 3 or 4 times because I really dug into these songs. Side 2, like I said, shines, but it doesn't. Content-wise, side A for me is the stronger side. Dreamboat Annie is reprised 3 times, which I think it's cool. It's kind of like a concept record without being a concept record. Maybe they didn't have a lot of material back then, and they were figuring, let's do Dreamboat Annie different ways. Now, I was thinking about what their influences was, because I don't really know a lot about Heart. I'm into them again, and thankfully, it's because of this reissue coming from MoFi. Because when you have a lot of records, you need a little push to go pull that album out that you said, I've heard that thing a million times, literally for the last 50 years. I know it's hard to believe, but for the last 50 years. So I don't know a lot about Heart, but I said, what are their influences? Now, everyone always says, and I agree, that this record will basically be compared to Led Zeppelin 3 with Stairway to Heaven, because it has the acoustic folk, it has the riffs, it has the searing vocals by Plant. So I could see that. But in the interviews I heard from Nancy, she actually thought of Yes, Steve Howe from Yes, or Anderson or Howe from Yes, when she actually wrote the chords for the intro to Crazy on You. She was also listening to a song, I think it was called can't remember the name, but it was you could check the interviews on YouTube, but it was also a song by Paul Simon, who had an acoustic intro. She talked about that, and they're huge Beatle fans. They said they knew every Beatles song, front to back. I could see them being big Beatle fans. I could see them being influenced by Zeppelin, although, she did mention Zeppelin briefly, but everyone else mentions Zeppelin 3 when they're comparing it to Dreamboat Annie. But Dreamboat Annie was a breakthrough. It was sold, I think they've sold 75 million records, probably more already with their entire catalog. They got heavier, and then they got more folky, so back and forth. But like I said, I'm not a hard expert, but I am now getting back. And my next project is to go through, I think I have 2 copies of magazine, 2 pressings of magazine, and I showed the picture disc the other day. So, but hopefully you guys can get to a record store and get it before this reissue comes out, because I think with the reissue comes out, more people are going to start looking for the originals, just to do comparison, or just some people are OCD and they need the original as well as the repress, like I do, right? So go to your record store, check that out. Sometimes on eBay, with the photographs, you blow it up, you can actually see. You might not be able to read the dead wax. You can always write to the person, but when you write to the person, that's going to tip him off, and who knows what's going to happen. Oh yeah, by the way, do you have so and so Go For It magazine on side 2 in the Matrix? He'll start looking around. He'll start seeing that that's a hot stamper, and he's gonna pull it. Some people won't, but he might pull it. But you could look at the pictures, and you can see the dead wax is very narrow. So I hope I explained that enough for you guys to check it out. And this is it. Dreamboat Annie, man, can't go wrong. Order that one from MoFi. They may sell out if you want a numbered copy. I don't know how many are being there, but $59.99, free shipping from MoFi. Even with this special release, free shipping. So you're saving some shipping there that you wouldn't save on some other companies. So keep rocking. I really appreciate it. And again, if you haven't subbed, please consider it. We try to give you some good information, and we love doing this. I love talking to you guys, and it gives me an opportunity to talk. So keep rocking. Talk to you later. Ciao.